first item on the agenda, concerns from the public. Anyone here today to speak on a matter? Yes, Phil. Not currently on today's agenda.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have
Can you, I was going to say, go to the microphone, but
four
they're not
things
up.
I want to talk to you about very quickly so I can get off to 11 o'clock. In doing some heavy-duty work on the web, I discovered a degree program that is tangentially of interest to all of you, especially Mr. Visco. Somebody say something about the mic?
Yeah, the TV.
Where is it?
The TV is coming.
Why don't you speak into the one at the end of the table there?
Okay.
Bill?
What is the
Oh, no, we've got one right over here going. There you go.
All right.
Oh, okay. Anyway, although if we had a person who was trained to this degree, I think you might well be interested in trying to hire him or her, had you the money. But the thing is, you will know kids who might be able to benefit from this, and that's why I'm going to tell you about it. It's a professional degree in soil sciences, Master of Soil Sciences, awarded by NC State. It's online, so that they can take, with the exception of 2 one-week courses, they could do the whole thing right from here, having a full-time, or wherever they're living, for a full-time job. They could get a full-time professional Master of Soil Sciences degree, pretty inexpensively. I think tuition at NC State is $12,000 a year, and it's only 36 credits, which you could pretty much do in a year or two. So I took as much as I could offline. It's not very pretty, but I will leave this to you. I'm hoping that some one of you, because of your professional affiliations, may know of some student who might like this so that he or she can get a job somewhere. Next thing, I would like you to, I want to offer to recreate a 15-minute paper I gave for the Society for Epidemiologic Research many years ago. And what I would do is give it after you've adjourned a future meeting, so that anybody who didn't want to hear it could go and the rest of you could stay. It would be how to evaluate a research proposal, especially a research proposal involved with biomedical things. And if you say, yeah, you can do that. You can give it after the meeting's adjourned, and those of us who want to stay will stay, and the rest will go. But if you say, no, we don't want to hear anything like that, I'm not going to spend the time doing it. And thirdly, in spending a lot of time on the web, I have found a whole lot of folders of information trying to tell people how to use their septic tanks properly. I mean, this is the homeowner, the user of the septic. There's a whole bunch of stuff like that. Now, maybe our Department of Public Health already has a folder or two, but if you don't, I would be willing to go and make copies of everything and write for it and get them all together, because the least we can do if we've got septic tanks is get together the agreed-upon information in a nice form so that if somebody walks into Mr. Ray's office and says, what do I have to do to keep my septic tank working properly? Then we'd have something to give them. And if you think you'd be interested, I'll do the work to get the information. And then if you approve of it, I would even rewrite it so that we could pass it out.
Some of the information may be redundant.
Oh, it is.
I'm not going to turn any educational information down, so I'd certainly like to see it. We do indeed have some information in our office with regard to the maintenance of a septic system and particularly a septic tank. But anything that can be added to that would certainly be a benefit. I'd be more than happy to accept it.
I've found stuff from EPA, the Mass EPA, from about 20 state universities. Everybody's got their folder. And they say more or less, but not exactly, the same thing.
Sure. Thank you.
And the fourth thing I would like you to think about, and I would rather not talk about it much today, because I would, as soon as I mention the words, Dr. McNabb is going to say, oh my God, I was afraid somebody would think of that, because he's an expert at it. I think we need to have an institutional review board. An institutional review board is a board of local people and scientists, some scientists, non-scientists, some doctors, some non-doctors, who evaluate for ethics every single proposal that is to deal with human beings. in anything like a medical sense. And I'm sure you've had to deal with IRBs again and again for years, and everybody who's submitting a research proposal at a medical school or a school of public health, you think, oh my goodness, what's the IRB going to do to me this time? I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And it's a traumatic experience for the person whose research proposal is being evaluated by the IRB. But by and large, I think it almost always improves the research proposals enormously. It protects the investigators from a lot of stupid things that he's, oh, well, I would never do that. Stupid things that might have gotten him in an awful lot of trouble with the law. It protects the people who are involved, the subjects of the study who have graciously agreed to be involved. It protects their rights. The IRB is important. We don't have anything like that around here. People just go out and do research. And I think we should consider doing it. If you tell me next time you meet, yeah, go get all the paperwork you can think of and all the instructions and so on and so forth. I will try. Then I will spend the time, because it would take me a good deal of time, but I will spend the time necessary to try to bring it all together so that we could then I could submit it to you folks. You could read it and you could look at it and you could see if you really like to go ahead with it. Now, I really have to run right now, but think about it for a while. The IRB is something, it's very valuable. Every investigator hates them, but no reputable investigator would undertake research these days without it. And in fact, if you do undertake research without it, most journals won't publish your articles. So
I have a question and a comment. First of all, you can't do any human research without an IRB. It's illegal. And the second, how much human research is done on this island?
I don't know. What is this? What was the proposal? For example, what's the proposal you were talking about doing at the annual town meeting? You know. So I mean, I don't know, and I for the purposes of today, I think we could just leave it there.
Well, that proposal actually would have an IRB at Mass General Hospital, but
well, okay, but I think it is in your purview. I think it's in your purview to say that you would or wouldn't undertake that kind of the organizing of an IRB. You wouldn't want to be the IRB yourselves, but you could organize one. And I would get all the paperwork and booklets and so on and so forth together that I possibly could, and probably books. There must be books that have been written about how to run an IRB. I would do that. Now, and tell me at the end of your next meeting. and I'll.
Thanks, Phil.
I've got to run. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. All right, any other public comment? Approval of minutes, May 17th, 2012. Any comments, corrections on the minutes? Seeing none, those are approved. I'm going to be recusing myself from the next matter and hand things over to Dr. McNabb.
okay, the next item is approval of hearing officer for restructuring transfer.
Yes.
proposal.
Negotiations between our town council and council for restructuring with regard to the restructuring application for a waste transfer site have come to fruition with one agreeable name with both parties to be the hearing officer for this particular hearings process. And that would be our attorney Arthur Krieger. He is acceptable to both parties, so I would like the board at this point to endorse Mr. Krieger as the hearings officer for the Miles Reese transfer station site assignment hearings process.
Comments, questions from the board? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The hearing officer is approved.
Thank you. There'll be more about this process a little later on the agenda.
Thank you, Nelson. All right, the next item on our agenda today is a public hearing on local regulations 75, local regulations for the application of fertilizers on Nantucket Island. I'm going to open the public hearing at this time and ask anyone here in the audience who would like to comment. Yes, Mr. Saperstein, Dr. Saperstein.
It's Lee.
Lee.
Good afternoon. I'm Lee Saperstein, resident town of Nantucket.
and a one-time chair of the Article 68 work group. And I'd just like to go on the record that we're very much in favor of this. Obviously, when the work group voted to transfer it to you, it was a unanimous thing. There are members of the work group here. I'm sure they'd like to be on the record. I can either introduce them or they can stand and yell out their names, as you prefer.
I will say, Mr. Chairman of the work group, it's your decision, so.
My predecessor, Lucinda Young, who stepped down from the chair so that she could do the valiant work of bringing the best management practices plan together. And if you haven't read this morning's paper, cover to cover, you wouldn't have discovered Lucy Lesky's column on gardening, where she does a marvelous job of précising what's in the best management plan. Next to her, Mark Lucas, ground superintendent from Nantucket Golf Club, Dr. Ernest Steinauer from Mass Audubon, and Cormac Collier, executive director from the Nantucket Land Council. And I would be remiss if I didn't introduce you to Douglas Smith, also known as Smitty, who was the proposer of the amended Article 68 way back in 2010.
I forgot that.
And so, yes, I think I can speak for all of them that we're in favor. And I would like to make one more comment, that when we transferred the information to the Board of Selectmen, who of course then transferred it to you, we had a memo with some recommendations, and we can revisit those. But basically what we said was, if this passes, in the eventuality that this passes, it will need some support for the educational effort, because we're really very much more in favor of education than regulation, but we recognize that regulation is a necessary part to make sure there's some teeth. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you. It's been, as I said, I think before the board, and it was one of the most interesting and I think exemplary kind of processes I've witnessed in my role here with town government, in terms of taking stakeholders and bringing them together to come up with a plan that was acceptable to all, and also a very large benefit to the town. So I often use it in situations where things have gotten to a place where conversations are sometimes almost impossible to have as a model of what can happen when we do it kind of right. So I appreciate it all very much. Questions from the board on the proposal?
I would just like to compliment the best practices document. I think it's one of the most comprehensive I've read, and it's extremely educational, and I think even people not involved in gardening or fertilizing could learn a great deal from that document.
Yes, Smitty?
Well, thank you, Lee. I'm Douglas Smith. I sit on the Shellfish and Harbor Advisory Board, and I'm also on the Harbor Plan Implementation Committee, the original drafting group of this article. I brought forth this legislation to town meeting because Michael Kopko asked me to. At the board, the Board of Selectmen asked the Harbor Plan Implementation Committee to take a vote on whether we should go forward. We didn't know how to go forward at that point in time. So it was Michael that came to me and said, Smitty, why don't you put your name on it and bring it to town meeting? So I represented the Harbor Plan Implementation Committee personally, bringing forth this legislation. And I also want to thank the group that this work has been 2 committees in 4 years. So we've really put time and effort into making sure that this is the best possible language that we could possibly give to you as an enacting group. I'm here also to represent the local scallopers and let you know that the harbor water quality is our winter job. You know, obviously we have tourism and lawns to maintain, but my scallop boat alone carries 4 people. I've got myself and a mate and 2 openers through the winter. So I can't underscore the importance of protecting the water quality, Nantucket Harbor water quality, and our scallop harvest. And I'm here in favor, obviously, of this, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Right, anyone else from the public to speak? Yes, John?
John Daniels from Woodard and Curran, the town's wastewater consultant. I just wanted to thank Mr. Ray and the board for allowing a lot of our comments and editorial corrections and definitions to be added to the bylaw as you have presented it. As you know, when we do the comprehensive wastewater management plan, what we're trying to do is integrate all of the facets in town that have an impact on water quality. And by adding these definitions to this regulation, it just starts the process which we want to carry out over the next 18 months by conforming all of the town's regulations to have the same set of definitions and information in it. I went through the bylaw as it was presented to you today and made some minor editorial comments, so I want to just pass this back to you for consideration in making some minor changes. But again, we thank you for doing that because it's going to help us as we do look at other bylaws in town.
Thank you. I'll just give that to Richard. Richard, would you do me a favor too and just make sure that Lee sees it as well, if he's all right with it? Is that all right with the board in terms of final? It sounds like it's just technical.
It's all capital letters, things of that nature.
Okay. Are you okay with not? Okay. Maybe we'll have Lee take a look at it just to be on the sure side.
I must admit that it's very gratifying to have this come before the board. This is for the benefit of Nantucket as an environmental entity and for the people on Nantucket. This is probably the most vetted document I've ever had the privilege of being a minor part of. This is going to even assist us, hopefully, in garnering the attention of DEP with regard to the reduction of the TMDL in both of our harbors. This will help us to meet their requirements.
Yep.
Fabulous document.
All right. Any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Ask the board if they have any final comments on the document. Are we here today to take action here? Do we have to accept it formally, or that was the Board of Selectmen and we have to talk about implementing it?
Implementation by design is actually scheduled for January 1st, 2013. We're allowing the landscaping community to utilize their existing stock of fertilizers and things of that nature, and hoping that come next year we will be starting with the more appropriate fertilization practices for the island. These regulations, if adopted today, will indeed become effective January 1st, 2013.
So we will take action today?
Sure.
Okay.
I would certainly like that.
I have a question. Now that this is all implemented, how do we get all the local landscaping people on board?
I think, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I defer to Richard because we've had long discussions on this.
I think public education, as Lee noted, is the key to making this work. And we have certainly going to have to reach out to the landscaping community in a timely manner. Now, when I say timely, I don't necessarily mean right now. This is their busiest season. They're not going to be available for a lot of little small public meetings or discussions. Once we get into the fall, then it is time to hold a number of symposiums or short one-day meetings or half-day meetings and reach out to the landscaping community to inform them that they're going to have to be licensed, that there are certain guidelines that they're going to have to follow, and there is an assistance document out there, the BMP, the Best Management Practices, that's going to help them meet the goals of these regulations and the intent of the regulation. But that's a little further down the road right now. We actually, in all honesty, do not have the staff right now to do that. I'm hoping that, and I will make application in the 2013-2014 fiscal year budget for an additional person within the health department to deal with a number of these issues that are becoming time-consuming for us. But yes, there will be an outreach to the landscaping community.
Will getting a license, they'll have to attend a symposium? I mean, it's
They
nice to have
certainly won't have to
symposium, but how do we get them to
attend the
come?
initial symposium if they do not wish. However, as a caveat of being licensed on Nantucket, they're going to have to maintain continuing education units. And in order to do that, we're going to need an individual who part of their responsibility will be filling the role of a health educator. And they will be the ones hopefully working with the fertilizer community to stage some of these 2- and 3-hour programs by bringing in experts in the field and doing this sort of thing once every 2 or 3 months in order to keep the continuing education units up for these people.
Will it be like, the license will be with the company, and the president of the company or the person that owns the company will be responsible for the employees?
I believe
I
that's
see.
the case, yes.
Okay.
Why don't I do this, why don't we take a vote on the matter, and then we can, just a follow-up?
I apologize, having deferred to Richard. I did want to give credit for education to the Nantucket Land Council, who brought in the people who were our advisors from the University of Connecticut, and we had 85 professionals in this room for the first one, and that was done by those experts from Connecticut of their own time. The Land Council organized it. And Cormac, that Professor Morris is coming back. Did I recall you to say September 1st? August 1st. Okay, so there will be another session. Now, eventually, those will have to be made institutional, and I think Richard gave you the very answer I would have given.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great. All right, do I have a motion then to approve?
Make the motion.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Big step for Nantucket. We are the only community in the state of Massachusetts who now has an active set of fertilizer regulations.
Thank you. Next item, approval of loan application, wastewater abatement fund, 90 West Chester Street. It's a sewer connection?
Yes, this is an application that needs to be signed by the chairman. I have the papers here. This is, again, part of the loan funding program that we do for septic system and/or sewer repair. This is a house that has a failed septic system, not currently on sewer, unable to attach to sewer simply because they were not in the sewer district. We changed all of that at the annual town meeting this year. This lady is now available to connect to the sewer, and at a cost of $25,000, the town will fund all of that with the proviso that she pays us back.
Okay. And your recommendation is for us to approve?
Is to approve, please.
Questions? Do I have a motion? So moved. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, Health Director report.
Okay, first of all, it's not on the agenda, but under licensure this year, as we all know, there was a rather tragic event associated with a recreational camp for children last fall on Nantucket. There was a great deal of concern about the safety within other recreational camps. Strong Wings has stepped forward and has met all safety requirements for licensure this year. Strong Wings has also put on a symposium for all other local recreational camps approximately a month ago. It was well attended. It was an excellent program, and it essentially discussed those safety factors that can be carried out throughout the summer activities of a camp and how to reinforce these with your staff. And we're a much better recreational camp for children community than we were because of this. Indeed, Strong Wings has, as I've noted, met all the requirements for licensure this year. They have corrected deficiencies within the system and are now a licensed recreational camp for children. The administrative consent order. This was vetted out over the last probably 4 or 5 months with regard to Matticat in particular and the advent of a change in wastewater disposal, be it either sewer or alternative technology. As such, we are well on the way now to bringing before the board, before the end of summer, the administrative consent order for the board's approval. We are simply waiting now for final word from the Finance Department on the payment schedules and the payment procedure. That'll be coming to the board probably within 60 days. As far as our review of a physician's office files are concerned, our pre-med student, Sarah Parker, has been on the job this week. She's working 4 hours a day. She is researching tick-borne disease within the emergency room and physician's offices. She is working primarily out of a hospital location. We are indeed paying her salary. This is moving along very well. There will be an end-of-season report from her, but we are up and moving with that program.
Fabulous.
The Tick-Borne Disease
Mr. Chair, excuse
Symposium,
me,
perhaps?
Just for the minutes, it's Sarah Burke.
I'm sorry, her name is
Yeah,
Sarah
you
Burke.
are
She is a
okay.
pre-med student on island this summer.
K.E., yes.
Perhaps the good doctor would like to speak about the Tick-Borne Disease Symposium?
Yes, well, we have scheduled a public symposium in this room on July 25th. It's a Saturday morning. I have agreement from 5 people to participate, 4 people. One is Kathleen Brown from the State Department of Health, who's an expert on epidemiology. I wished our epidemiologist was here. Larry Dappas, who is the entomologist from Barnstable County, has some great tips on how to protect yourself. Dr. Lepre has agreed to speak. And John Goldman, Dr. Goldman, who is an infectious disease doctor, just retired professor of medicine and infectious disease from Hershey Medical Center. He's a part-time island resident, but a very good speaker. And they all agreed. The issue to me is this will cost a little money, not a lot. The speakers will all speak for free. We would have to assist in the transportation and lodging of 1 or 2 nights for the 2 off-island speakers. And we would have to spend some money on publicity, because I'd hopefully like to see more in the room than 1, 2, 3, 4 people.
Malcolm has discussed the publicity issue with me. Unfortunately, because of budgetary constraints, our hands are tied until the end of the fiscal year. I am looking through our budget items, trying to scrape up something to see if we can't get a little bit of a head start on that. But once we get beyond July 1st, then you'll see weekly notices in the paper about this. And I'll be publicizing it also and discussing it also at the Board of Selectmen's meetings as well.
Whitey?
July 25th?
Mhm.
That isn't a Saturday.
It is a
20
Saturday.
It's the 28th.
No, it's that last Saturday in July.
28th.
I'm sorry.
28th.
And the other thing is, we can interview you over Channel 17, advertise.
Absolutely.
So if you'll pick somebody to do this, we'll give you some time.
We picked Malcolm.
Yeah.
I can do that. If you do recall the Tick-Borne Disease Committee's recommendation, one of the absolute key recommendations and the underpinning of everything is an educational program. The others are much more difficult to actually implement for many reasons. So we can go a long ways with that. So what I'm understanding is that we will see official publicity after July 1st.
I'm hoping.
That would give us 3 weeks.
I'm hoping-
You can't sneak something in, and actually, July 1st is coming up pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's coming up very quickly.
And the funding for my off-island visitors?
That will be taken care of out of professional services.
Terrific. I'm happy.
We're all about making Malcolm happy.
How do I get a hold of you?
You don't really want to give your phone number on TV, do you?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I'll give it to you. Oh, and the other thing is Dr. Hartman is going to be the moderator. She's agreed to moderate.
Nice, very nice.
So we have, because there are some people on this island who think I have certain opinions about this, I think Dr. Hartman would be perfect.
Isn't the hospital co-sponsoring it with us?
Yes, the announcement should say Board of Health and Nantucket Cottage Hospital.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Reese Transfer Station, this is a transfer station that's proposed for the old Bunker Road out behind the airport. It is a site that's going to be collecting C&D debris and construction and demolition debris, brush and things of that nature, concrete and tar and things of that nature, as you very much the same sort of process that's functioning out at the current landfill. To bring this to fruition, Reese has got to get approval from the state as well as the local Board of Health. It is an involved process that has just stepped up in speed in the sense that DEP has now offered a positive recommendation for the siting of the transfer station. We received that correspondence yesterday. It appears that there will be a public hearing at the Board of Health meeting on July 19th. There will be a change of time for that day. It's going to have to happen at 1 o'clock in the afternoon to facilitate the use of an off-island public hearing officer. But as of right now, it's going to be July 19th, 1 p.m. in this building, in this room, for a initial public hearing with regard to the Reese transfer station siting procedure. That's all I got.
Okay. Other concerns from the board? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Thank you, second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So our next meeting is July 19th.
July 19th, 1 o'clock.
And then will we meet then at 4?
I have also scheduled a meeting for 4, just in case we may need to do that, because there may be other issues before the board. It's the summer. There could very well be other issues for the board.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.